Hello and welcome to This Week at the General Assembly for March 6, 2015. In today's program, we'll discuss the governor's proposed budget, an economic development bill that has passed the House, changes in the North Carolina gas tax, an audit on Medicaid eligibility determinations, and H-128, which could change requirements on counties issuing debt. First, let's start with the governor's budget. Governor McCrory released his second biennial budget this week, and he stated his focus is on job creation, education, and infrastructure. With a total of $21.5 billion in the first year, roughly $500 million more than that adopted in 2014-15, most of the new funds are targeted at economic development, teacher pay, school enrollment growth, and Medicaid rebasing and reserves. Budget summaries indicate his plan to call for two bond referenda of $1.2 and $1.4 billion each, one for transportation and one for state building and community college improvements. His transportation budget is predicated on setting a 35-cent gas tax minimum throughout the biennium. Recent gas price decreases under the state's current gas tax formula dictate a drop in the state's gas tax come July. In keeping with the governor's State of the State address, his budget includes establishing two new departments, Military and Veterans Affairs and Information Technology. It also transfers responsibility for animal welfare to public safety and all state attractions, museums, and parks to cultural resources. As expected, last session's commitment to move all starting teachers' salaries to $35,000 would be realized, and funding is provided for teachers and principals eligible for step increases. A pledge to provide wireless connectivity to all schools within the biennium is funded, along with additional funding and spending flexibility for instructional resources. Enhancement in community mental health services are particularly welcome to counties. No other major initiative impacting counties, good or bad, appears to be included, although the special provisions to accompany the funding proposal are not expected for several weeks. These provisions include allocations for lottery dollars, including that for school construction lottery funding. Our conversations with State Office and Budget Management indicate that the $100 million in school lottery funds will be recommended for both years of the biennium. This week, the House approved an economic development bill, H-117, NC Competes Act, which mirrors much of the economic development programs Governor McCrory called for in his State of the State address. NCACC Government Relations Coordinator Hugh Johnson spoke with us to give us more information on the bill.
Well, counties approved a goal this biennium to support legislation to grow the state's economy through sound investments, including tax credits, incentive programs, and infrastructure programs. This legislation specifically was amended to include a provision for JDIG projects in Tier 3 areas that would simply require local government participation in recruitment efforts and offer incentives in a manner appropriate to the project. This is similar to language we've seen elsewhere in statute for the Site Infrastructure Development Fund. Counties often offer matches or supplementing resources to state economic development programs to attract, retain, and grow businesses. So our counties are very interested in efforts and supportive of efforts by the state to ensure those programs are funded and supported at the state level. Well, the bill doubles the cap on the Job Development Investment Grants Program, or JDIG, to $45 million through the end of the year, so that would carry us through the end of the year. And along these lines, the governor's budget released this week includes about $45 million for existing obligations under JDIG, which would carry through projects in 2017. This legislation specifically would rename JDIG the Job Growth Reimbursement Opportunities People Program, or JGRO, and would also rebrand the One North Carolina Small Business Program and One North Carolina Fund, the JGRO Capital Program and JGRO Capital Small Business Program. So JDIG is now JGRO. And the argument the House and the Department of Commerce and Secretary Skvarla have made is that these programs are more of a back-end reimbursement to companies after they have come and invested in North Carolina and created jobs, rather than a front-end grant to the company. This bill also allocates $20 million for manufacturing incentive program called the Site Infrastructure Development Fund. That is then renamed the Site Acceleration Fund. The argument has been this is similar to the closing fund that the governor was arguing for last year, which is similar to closing funds we've seen in other southeastern states. Finally, the bill makes various changes to the way business taxes are calculated, as well as extends some sales tax exemptions, including a sales tax exemption on commercial jet fuel, as well as some investments in data centers around the state. Well, the House introduced the bill last week, and we've been tracking it since then. It passed third reading 88 to 29 yesterday, where it now goes to the Senate, where we expect significant changes before turning to the House, likely for a conference committee. No, this is not a relatively new issue. The end of last year's short session was delayed because an economic development bill that provided additional funds for programs like JDIG could not make it through the General Assembly. There was a renewed call by leadership in both chambers and the governor to address this issue early in session. And counties had a goal last biennium to improve and maintain these incentive programs. We will keep you updated on any changes to the bill as it moves through the Senate next, so please check back with This Week at the General Assembly, our legislative bulletin, and our weekly manager's call. And please help us reiterate county support for broad efforts by the state to enhance economic growth through economic development tools, including incentives, historic tax credit, film tax credit, and infrastructure investments. As always, you are our best advocates for our counties, and we appreciate all the support you provide to the association.
Making sure every day in the neighborhood is a safe day in the neighborhood. We welcome you to your county. For more information on what your county government does for you, visit welcometoyourcounty.org. Now moving on to changes in the gas tax. Amidst near constant debate on whether proposed changes to how the state calculates gas tax constitutes a cut or increase, S20 IRC Update Motor Fuels Tax Changes moved quickly through the legislature this week. The original Senate version dropped the tax from 37.5 cents per gallon to 35 cents until July 1st of this year, and set a floor of 35 cents going forward. The House revised the bill so the tax would be 36 cents until January 1st, 2016, then returned to the current formula. The gas tax, which fluctuates with the price of gasoline, is one of the main sources of transportation revenue for the state. While recent low gas prices have been immediately beneficial to consumers, the decrease in revenue for transportation infrastructure is detrimental in the long term for road and bridge maintenance and construction. The House version of the bill has been returned to the Senate, which will determine whether to agree with the changes next week. Now we move on to the Medicaid audit. A surprise amendment to S14 was on the House floor Monday night and directs the state auditor to conduct a performance audit of county Medicaid eligibility determinations. The audit would be a sample of rural and urban counties and focus on the timeliness and accuracy of Medicaid applications, presumptive applications, and re-enrollment eligibility determinations. The Senate voted not to concur with the bill Thursday for reasons unrelated to the Medicaid amendment, so it will go to a conference committee to work out the differences. Now let's move on to H128, which is a bill that could change the way local debt is issued. Legislation introduced Wednesday would set up a new petition initiative to subject all county debt financing to voter referendum, including those debt instruments now requiring approval by the Local Government Commission. This bill would enable 5% of a jurisdiction's voters to sign a petition, which would trigger a voter referendum on any local government debt. H128 would initiate a new petition process to enable 5% of the area's voters to call for a referendum on any form of local government debt. Such a referendum could only be held in keeping with the current restrictions on the timing of local government referenda, namely that counties may only call for a special election in conjunction with another election requiring all county precincts to be opened. Generally, this would limit these special elections to even-numbered years. Well, that's all we have for this week. If you'd like more information on any of the topics we've discussed here, please visit www.ncacc.org. There you can subscribe to our legislative bulletin as well as follow us on social media. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.